U.S. administration would never allow for this to happen. But it did. Why?
It suggests that the administration wanted a deal more than Iran.
Welcome to Eye for Iran, where we go beyond the headlines to bring you deeper insight into Iran and the forces shaping the region. The details of the US-Iran Memorandum of Understanding are now out. Now, is it total capitulation by the United States or a strategic win? We'll break down what the agreement means, what it changes, and what it leaves unanswered with former U.S. diplomat David Schenker.
It's something out of a mafia movie.
And amid all of this, what about the Iranian people? Are they the forgotten actor in these negotiations? Iranian-American activist Gazelle Sharmahd joins us to share the reaction from those whose lives are most directly affected.
Defeat. That's I think, a lot of people feel betrayed.
And finally, the World Cup. For most countries, football is an escape from politics. For Iranians, it's the exact opposite. Feelings of hate, grief, joy, anger, pride, and guilt. We discuss the mixed emotions surrounding Team Melli with Iran international correspondent Alireza Modiri and actress and activist Shiva Negar.
I had tears in my eyes because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should cheer or if I didn't know if I should be angry.
Everybody knows what happened in Iran, so you can't just ignore it. But at the same time, if you don't want to be supportive of your own people, just be quiet.
I'm Negar Mojtahedi, and this is Eye for Iran. David Schenker, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs and Senior Fellow at the Washington Institute, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
Likewise, David, as a former top U.S. diplomat, I'd love for us to be able to break down the MoU and just really make sense of it. Let's start with like a broad overview, like your overall consensus. How would you characterize this MoU for Iran and for the United States? Is any side capitulating here? Is one side benefiting more than the other? Perhaps did Iran get more than you may have anticipated, or how do you feel?
Yeah, I don't feel good about it. I think that it's front-loaded, that there are a lot of benefits for Iran up front, the end of the oil sanctions, the promise of relief from all other sanctions, including human rights sanctions, the release of billions of dollars in frozen assets early on. So this is essentially, in my view, a deal to return to the status quo of 27 February when the straits were open. So this will reopen Hormuz, and the issue of negotiation, which promises even more, is kicked down the road. And I don't think that's really going to get anywhere. But in the meanwhile, it's a tremendous win for Iran, and a loss not only for, I think, our Gulf partners, but also in particular, we can put aside Israel for a second, which is incredibly disappointed about none of the objectives ostensibly being met, the end to enrichment, limits on ballistic missiles, and support for the proxies, but also a tacit, or let's say an explicit, U.S. recognition of legitimacy of linkage of the reopening of Hormuz to the protection of Iran's #1 IRGC proxy in Lebanon. And of course, this undermines the hopes and aspirations of the government of Lebanon to exert sovereignty. So I think across the board, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing too. A big win for the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it showed that their kind of pressure campaign in terms of how long they could, sustain this really worked at the end of the day. Their patience, rather, and the biggest loss also being that for the people of Iran who had hopes and who had aspirations in the process. And with Lebanon, like you said, it's part of the MoU. And this is, of course, we have to remember that Iran hit Israel directly for the first time as a result of Hezbollah, Israel's attack on the Dahiyeh region of Beirut, which was as a result of course, Hezbollah at the behest of Iran attacking Israel because they wanted to couple Lebanon with the conflict. And I had heard from so many experts in Washington, D.C. and around the world that this sets a very dangerous precedent and that the president and the U.S. administration would never allow for this to happen. But it did. Why?
Well, I think first and foremost, it suggests that the administration wanted a deal more than Iran, so it was willing to make concession. Um, I also think that the administration may or may not, and it remains to be seen, uh, enforce or constrain Israel from taking action against Hezbollah. This may be a short-term deal here because, as I anticipate, I think the nuclear negotiations really aren't going to go very far. And the IRGC will look to establish new rules of the game between its proxy and Israel, continuing to target not only Israeli troops in Lebanon, but also across the border into Israel. And will be looking to provoke an Israeli response that will potentially further damage or undermine bilateral relationship with the United States. So there's a bigger problem here as well, which is the precedent. Iran says that all wars in the region have to end, right? So basically, the recognition of that demand, and I think there's some utility of it. I think there should be some sort of de-escalation. But if Iran can insulate not only Hezbollah, but also the Hashid in Iraq and their partners, the Houthis in Yemen, from Israeli retaliation, Israeli direct action, this too would, I think, weaken U.S. deterrence, Israeli deterrence, and strengthen this proxy network across the region. So I was surprised that the administration agreed to it. But of course, there's a different definition here. The United States is saying we're not demanding that Israel end its military presence in Lebanon. That's something to be determined between the government of Lebanon and Israel. That's tied to the disarmament process with Hezbollah, and that Israel can continue to proactively defend itself. But I think for this first 60, 90 days, we're going to see the United States, the Trump administration pressuring Israel to take the win, to not potentially disrupt these negotiations, but incredibly problematic at the end of the day that the United States recognizes.
Yeah, very much so, because now Iran can just use Lebanon or Hezbollah anytime they need for diplomacy, rather, as leverage in diplomatic efforts. But as you mentioned, I mean, there's really kind of two parallel realities taking place in Lebanon. And if you got the President Ayoun, who's appears to be hoping to move closer to Israel. So we'll see what happens with that, given the state of the Middle East and how Iran appears to be, at least politically speaking, more influential despite the severe military losses that they sustained.
Yeah, they're going to point to this and say, look, Iran and Hezbollah protected Lebanon.
Yeah.
And this is going to give Iran some credit with the Hezbollah Shiite constituency. And at the same time, undermine the democratically elected government of Lebanon, which has invested in these direct talks and has not yet achieved sort of tangible deliverables for the Lebanese people. They've invested in a process they know is going to take some time, and Hezbollah and Iran shortcutted it. So, I think I spoke with friends in Lebanon today, incredibly demoralizing for them.
Yeah, and you're right, a great propaganda tool for the Islamic Republic. Now, one point that stood out to me was with regard to Hormuz. And of course, the U.S. would dismantle their blockade. Iran would agree to the free passage. But there's one point that really stood out, and that was where it said that Iran would hold talks with Oman and other Persian Gulf states for the future administration, quote unquote, and maritime services. So to me, that almost sounds like adding that Iranian officials would eventually partner with Oman and in administering. I know that they're not framing it as tolls. They've said that it's not tolls, but that they've repeatedly said, the government of Iran, that they're going to put a environmental protection fee. So how do you read that yourself?
Well, it's something out of a mafia movie. Iran is offering protection, and will shake down international global shipping. It'd be interesting to see if Oman goes along with this. I mean, some people will point to other precedents. Turkey compels uh, maritime traffic transiting the Bosphorus. They charge them a fee. They compel them to take a tugboat to guide the ships. And this is because it's much narrower, much more narrow and tricky to traverse. And there have been, accidents and environmental disasters, but I don't think it's analogous. And if the administration permits this of course will erode what's left of the global world, rules-based order. And we can expect that the Chinese will start charging for the South China Sea, et cetera. This is a bad precedent to set. And of course, we'll put more money in perpetuity in the pockets of the regime in Tehran.
And what is this concept of releasing funds for good behavior? Like, how do you measure that? And it seems very vague. What does that even mean?
Well, they're trying to condition release of frozen assets, right? They're doing the lifting of the oil sanctions up front, which of course billions, untold billions of dollars, right?
Wow.
It is the number one source of revenue for the state, and will be a real boon to the economy and also to the regime's ability to provide largesse funding for its terrorist proxy militias. But what they're going to do is say, well, the Iranians are engaging on the nuclear front. They are negotiating in good faith. They have agreed to downblend their 60% highly enriched uranium, therefore will release more frozen assets. But this is really, first and foremost, the payment for the reopening of Hormuz. And then it is, reparations, for or we can call them, payment for good behavior. But at the end of the day, I personally, and I agree with John Ratcliffe, the head of the CIA, who said that it's, highly dubious that the Iranians will make a significant concession on their nuclear program. And it's not a concession if the Iranians say, if the regime says we're going to take a 10-year moratorium on enrichment. Their program is set back estimated 7 years, right? It's going to take them a long time to rebuild anyway. And along the way, they're going to be, enriching themselves and putting themselves in a position to do this. Likewise, the administration appears already to have moved off the initial demand that they started the war for, of ending enrichment. Right. And so now they're talking about limitations on enrichment. And we get into an argument about whether it's 3.62% or whether, up to what percent. So, all told, they're going to try and, I think, calibrate this. But, hopefully, that they're going to stick to it and make pretty, I think, serious demands. Not move off the point, even if progress slows down. And I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where the Gulf countries are going to contribute $300 billion, to send into Iran. I mean, we have to remember, that years ago in Negar, the Chinese said they would invest $5 trillion in Iran. I haven't seen a dollar come yet. So I think that's that ain't going to happen. But meanwhile, there will be hundreds of other billions of dollars that come.
Yeah. So speaking of that, the MOU, my understanding is it does have to go through congressional review, and any upfront sanction relief would violate the Iran Nuclear Agreement Review Act. So, David, given that, what can be done? Like, will it be done in terms of the lifting of the sanctions? Like, how would that process happen if it doesn't get congressional review? Can the president still override that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure typically there are waivers
Okay.
available within all of the legislation. And so I think that's the route the president will take, although it's a pretty difficult vote for Congress in some ways, right? Because if they say no, then oil prices, Americans are going to still be paying $4.50 or $5 a gallon. And the president will lay this off, the blame for this, on Congress. Nevertheless, and the other part is, of course, I think Republicans in Congress have demonstrated that um, they're basically amoebas. They're not going to push back on the president. They have proven to be thus far pretty much a rubber stamp for the president. So, there is an aura, and the administration says that they will go and brief Congress. Whether Congress is going to take a vote is another story. Just unclear at this point.
Wow. And let's talk about what was missing from this MOU. Tell us in your view, what are some of the big things that were missing?
Well, we started this war, with three, four objectives. So let's put aside, what the president said initially about regime change. One was the end of enrichment, the removal of all highly enriched uranium, strict limits on distances of advanced ballistic missiles, and an end of support, financial material support for the proxies and the partners in the region, right? These terrorist militia in Iraq, Lebanon, and Yemen. Um, of that, two out of three are missing, right? They've dropped off. And now we hear the president saying, well, that, maybe Iran has a right to have ballistic missiles. And, listen, they still have, according to Israeli estimates, 70% of the ballistic missiles that they started the war with. But proxies aren't part of the discussion. I'm not sure it would have been useful to raise the issue of proxies because it's unenforceable.
Yeah,
And if Iran agreed to it, they'd lie anyway.
exactly.
Um, so, yeah, it's a pretty narrow deal. The MOU is focused on reopening the strait and getting to negotiations about how much enrichment and when Iran can restart the program. And this, really, I think that the blockade was working. The U.S. blockade
Yeah,
was
it
working.
was.
And what it required was strategic patience to test the mettle of this regime to see whether they could withstand, whether the real would go up to 2 million for a dollar, or 3 million to a dollar. But clearly, the president, I think the administration lost patience, wanted to move on to the next item, whether that's Cuba or something else. Um, and so we end up with a deal that Republicans and Democrats are now highly critical of. And every day, the vice president will be sent out to defend what is, highly unpopular after spending so much blood and treasure, and for the poor Iranian people that had high hopes that this would result in meaningful change, if not in regime change, then perhaps some change in the nature of the regime. Um, Not going to happen. Not right now,
No,
anyway.
no, executions are still taking place. Public lashings for a singer who held a live stream concert a couple of months ago. So, David, what are you, just to conclude, watching out for in the coming weeks to come?
Well, how hard does the regime in Iran try and keep negotiations going? I mean,
Mm,
the Iranian playbook, the regime playbook, is to string these things out as long as possible, and give them credit, masterful negotiators, right? And now that they know, and we've proven that they want this agreement more than they do, the longer they stretch this out, the more sanctions relief, the more release of frozen assets there will be. So it is in their interest to have this process go on a long time. So I would anticipate we're going to get 30, 60, 90 days, and then the Iranians regime and the Trump administration will agree to an extension. And so this is going to go 180 days. We're going to be quibbling about, how much enrichment, when, and the administration's nonetheless invested in it. And contrary to what we hear about resuming the bombing, the president has made clear he has no interest in that. So,
yeah.
and it's not clear to me it would move the needle anyway. The United States already had 13,000 targets in Iran. Another weekend isn't going to push the needle. So I would look for what happens in the negotiation, um, and then I would be keeping my eyes out on how much money Hezbollah gets
Yeah.
from this, whether they reopen their kindergartens, whether Hezbollah constituents start getting, caravans to live in the Bekaa Valley, et cetera, until they can return to the south. Yeah, I mean, all kinds of things to keep your eye on. Next thing is, as you said, the tolls or the protection fee in Hormuz. I'd be looking to see not only, you know, what the result of that is for the negotiations of U.S.-Iran, but also how that impacts U.S.-Omani relations, which are a little stressed right now. So it's going to be an interesting summer and fall.
Yeah. It definitely will be lots to look out for. Well, thank you so much, David, for enlightening us and for making sense of the MOU. I really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. It's fun to be with you.
Likewise. Basil, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, my dear, you have been through so much since 2020. Your father was kidnapped from the UAE. He was abducted through 2 different states before he was taken to Iran. He was imprisoned, eventually killed. You fought so hard for him, and you continue his legacy, and you light that way. It's just really, I applaud you for everything that you've done during that period of time and after. And, before we get into the MOU, this Memorandum of Understanding, I just want our audience to hear in your own words, tell us about your father, who he was, and what you went through.
Thank you so much, Negarjan. And my father's story, as shocking as it might be, is the story of thousands, if not millions, of Iranians and other people in the region, Jews, Druze, everybody who is under Islamist occupation has these stories to tell. So my father was born in Iran, just like me, raised in Germany, and then moved to America, by choice American, for the last 20 years. And from here, looking back at our relatives, our brothers, our sisters inside of Iran, how they have to live under the occupation, how they're just like us. They were raised like us. They have the same dreams like us, the same values, and they can't breathe over there. You can't just sit and live your life outside of Iran. So my father did what he knew to do best, and he was a software engineer. He created a website for the people of Iran back, we're talking 20 years ago or so, where we didn't have YouTube, social media, Instagram, all of these ways to communicate information into the country and out of the country freely. So he created that website and made sure that Iranians could log into the website from inside of Iran and their IP addresses were safe. That means the regime could not track them down. The regime could not stop them from speaking the truth. And that was such a threat to this regime that in 2009, They sent assassins here to Los Angeles to murder my father. That was the first time that they tried and failed. But they never stop. That is the problem with this regime. Once they want you out, they want you out. So assassination attempts against our president, against dissidents, against journalists, they're real. And the moment this regime comes back to power and has more resources, they will continue what they were doing. And they did that in my dad's case, as you said, in 2010. They kidnapped him, took him to Iran, held him hostage for 4.5 years, tortured him until they murdered him. And even when we received his body back, which was also a fight, they even desecrated his body, took out his tongue, his heart, his leg. So many organs were missing. So when we're talking about this Islamic regime, we're not talking about some government, clearly. We're talking about the most savage Islamist occupation that the Middle East has ever seen.
I'm so sorry, Ghazal June. I know that you've never stopped fighting for the people of Iran, and it's really incredible, even with your own struggles, that you think about other people, and not just people inside Iran, but even outside of Iran. So that speaks volumes of your own character. Ghazal, when news broke of this MOU, what were you feeling?
Defeat. That's I think a lot of people feel betrayed. As I was putting out, stories and videos, I saw a lot of people feeling betrayed because they believed in this administration for a good reason. We didn't believe in this administration because they said something. We believed in it because their policies in the first term, in the first Trump administration, showed that they ripped up the JCPOA. They were against a deal with the Islamic regime. Trump pulled out of this knowingly. They were fighting against the IRGC. In this first term, he blew up the IRGC commander, Soleiman, and they put a track record of showing with their policies that they're against terrorism, that they think like that they understand geopolitics and the threat of this regime. And in this term, once again, whether it's a 12-day war or epic fury, we saw actions, not just words. So the trust was real, and the direction this administration was going was very real. That's why many feel betrayed. I and my team of advisors and experts and who I talk to, we feel more defeated because we cannot just ignore that this administration has probably been pushed to take this absolute U-turn from we're defeating this regime, we're bringing them down, nothing but surrender, to giving them like numbers that are unbelievable, $300 billion to the Ayatollahs. That is unforgivable.
And throughout this journey, you've become very close, obviously, to people inside of Iran. What are you hearing from them? I mean, many Iranians had hoped that this would be the end. Everyone was really hopeful, sending messages that, see you in Tehran in a few months. And they thought that with the deaths of, tens of thousands of these protesters, that it wouldn't be, they had hoped that it wouldn't have been in vain, right?
Because they saw reality. They saw the same reality that every military expert can tell you, that Pete Hegseth can tell you. In the military field, in the battlefield, we won. We had the regime to its knees. We were maybe weeks or months away from going and taking a flight to a free Iran. How do we go from there to giving this regime the resources, the power, the legitimacy to build up everything that we took away from them? Everything can be rebuilt when you give them billions of dollars. Everything can be redone when you give them access to, now you can sell oil for 60 days. Everything that we said the Biden administration, the Obama administration did wrong, we're doing now. And we're undoing all of the good that we've done in this time. So how are they feeling? Many are on death row. This moment when we shake hands of the regime, I have experienced that in my life with my father. The moment the Biden administration gave this regime $6 billion and brought some hostages home and left my father knowingly behind, he was killed after that. People get killed after that. That's like signing their death warrant. And so we have hundreds of thousands of new political prisoners right now in prisons. We have so many young people, teenagers on death row. They will be executed. The execution wave will not going to go down. In history, we see it goes up when we appease this regime.
And in fact, there was recently just 2 executions, and there was a singer, a very beautiful Iranian singer inside of Iran who sang, kind of she live streamed, one of her shows at a
Yes.
caravan, Parastu Ahmadi, and she just received 74 lashes with this so-called,
Yes.
quote, unquote, "new regime," if you will.
And they do that on purpose because she was a public figure. They want to show, look, we can do that. Nothing will hold us back right now. This is a message to the Iranian people, which, by the way, deal or no deal, whatever the West or any country decides to do, the Iranian people are determined to take this regime out. So they will rise up. So this is a message by the regime to the Iranian people. Hey, we have the backing of the West. There will be no UN resolution. There will be no tribunals. There will be no army coming from you. You're on your own. So they're trying to terrorize them into submission. The Iranian people, of course, will not do that. And that's why they're trying to do many public lashings, public executions, public savagery against the people to threaten them to, at least for some time, retreat. So the regime can rebuild their besieged centers and all of the armies that were meant to take out the Iranian people. They will rebuild them and restock them to hold down this 90 million army that we have inside of Iran that is dead set on liberating itself. They're not going to stop.
Yeah, already Ismail Ghani, who took over for Soleimani within the Quds Force, said that they're working on rebuilding Hamas. So it's interesting that they're very public about all of this. It's not something
Yes.
that they hide.
They have assurances.
Yeah.
You only go into public and say that publicly when you know there's nothing coming in hiding you. So we know that these deals have been in the making for a long time. These agreements have been coming in a long time. Now it's just the public signing of it. But the defeat, the pressure on the Trump administration, be it, like the chaos inside of the country, like domestic violence with ICE back and forth, rallies against Trump, the media coming with like apocalyptic messages of the stock market is crashing, this and that is happening, you cannot win the war. So all of this pressure, plus we can't forget pressure on his life, assassination attempts. I still know it from my own family. After they tried to kill my father, my mother was screaming at my dad, is it worth it? Is it worth it if they come and kill your daughter or your son? Like the pressure on a man that is going forward against a regime. And now they're coming for his family. And we just saw there was threats on the life of the apple of his eye, Ivanka Trump. So we see the regime is not strong in the battlefield, but they're strong in a different battlefield, which is public opinion, which is media, which is pressure, which is infiltration of decision makers, of our government, of our policy makers, to sway the administration from full going against the biggest threat to not just like stopping and going away, but appeasing them with the biggest benefit you could ever imagine.
And like you said, they have patience.
Yes, they play the long game. That's what we have to understand. They're not going to come out right now and do another October 7 like next week.
No,
they
but they will.
They will play it out for as long as they have to, sit still and everything goes through. And then once the money is being transferred, everything is already in the making for the next October 7, whether it's
or another 9/11.
Another 9/11. Yeah. It's threatening to think that we already have assassination attempts on Iranian activists here on U.S. soil, my family, other families, journalists and so on, our president. Imagine with $300 billion in their hands, with trillions coming from Qatar right now, which is advertised as if it's something good, invested here. How many of our institutions, how many of our intelligence, how many of our security, how many of our everything that we have here is going to be infiltrated? How many assassination attempts we will have in a few months, in a few years
multiplied. No, and when you talked about it seems like a lot of the conversation is around, okay, Hormuz, oil prices, like you mentioned, this kind of message that, the Iranian regime is winning, etc. But when I spoke to actual experts, they were saying, you know what, like the blockade is working and the markets have already stabilized. If you can continue this until September, Iran doesn't have other options. Americans do. This is something that is, a leverage that has depreciated for Iran. We saw that between Saudi Arabia and Jordan, they created a railway line to try and, get away from the Strait of Hormuz, and the Iraq could technically in the south and in the north they have a pipeline. They could have built a pipeline in the south, for example. So there was other means, and crisis often a crisis like this leads to diversification. So really, patience was something that I guess the Iranian regime played on that, and clearly it worked in this case. And with a lot of the conversation, Ghazal, being around geopolitics and what this means for the U.S. and elections coming up, the primaries, etc., what about the people of Iran? Who's speaking for them?
We're speaking for them. The international community is speaking for them. Thankfully, we have this connection between the diaspora and the people inside of Iran. I mean, my father and I, we've worked with underground revolutionaries for 2 decades. But now, since last year, July 18th, all of the different opposition groups came together in Munich and formed what is the biggest coalition of Iranian opposition groups, all with ties inside of Iran. And we declared one leadership, one coalition, one base, so to say, for the government in exile under the leadership of the Crown Prince. So we already established that tie there. It is very clear that what we're saying here, what we're projecting, is coming directly from Iran, because then every time they have internet, they're reflecting exactly that. So you have here a complete alternative of a representation of Iran versus the Islamic regime, which is not Iranian by any means. They're not ethnic Iranians, not by identity, not by policy, not by faith, not by anything. This is a foreign invasion and occupation of Iran. They are holding the people of Iran down by force. So by international law, a government or an entity that is holding down a nation by force, by gunpower, by military power, is not a government. It has no legitimacy. It's not sovereign. It is an occupation. It's an insurgence. You can call it whatever it is. It's not a government. So they have no representation for Iran. They're making deals to get money that belongs to the Iranian people. All of these unfrozen assets is the money of the 40,000 people that were murdered in January. That money belongs to them. We as a community have to take that money, put it right now on an account, and hold it at least as long as we can, hold it with dividends, with interest, until the transitional government can take over. And then that is the moment that we will give back to the people who are coming to the streets, who are reclaiming their country, who are the real owners of that money, who are the real owners of that oil, who are the real owners of the soil that this regime is right now occupying. So we have a lot to do. These people are mobilized inside of Iran, mobilized outside of Iran. We have to stand up. This is not the time to sit down and see, let's watch and see what happens. This is the time to make sure that what is ours is reclaimed by us, and that we show the international community we're breaking international law here. We cannot pretend any longer, after the genocide of January, we cannot pretend that this is a sovereign state and a sovereign nation. They have to be an international tribunal to pay for these crimes.
Yeah, when you massacre your own people, sovereignty is definitely thrown out the door there. Ghazal, if you could give, coming out of this MOU, one message right now to President Donald Trump and speak directly to him, what would you say?
I feel everything that you're feeling. My father was under immense pressure when they came to take his life. When you take on the path of fighting against the biggest Islamist powers on earth, it is hard. It is devastating. They will come for you. They tried to smear my family. They tried to kill us. And in the end, they took my father's life savagely. We understand what is at stake. But you have an army of Iranians. You have an army of American patriots. You have an army in the Middle East standing behind you. Capitulation will not save us. It will be our end. So President Trump, from one patriotic family to another patriotic family, who is being targeted by this regime, continue what you were doing. Epic fury is not done yet. We need to finish this. And the people of Iran will be your biggest partner in this. Speak to us, not to this regime. If you go forward with this deal, everything that you have done for America, for Iran, for the world, will be going to waste, and it will be the most horrific deal ever signed.
Thank you so much, Ghazal. That was very powerful. And thank you for joining us today on Eye for Iran.
Thank you for your time.
Joining us now is Alireza Mohdidi. He's a correspondent with Iran International, and Shiva Negar. She is an activist and an actress who attended the match of the Islamic Republic of Iran versus New Zealand. Thank you to you both for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Definitely. Shiva-Jin, we'll start with you. I know that I think we can all agree that being Iranian is never simple. And so even enjoying, the World Cup game, which is supposed to be a time where you should really be able to escape politics and just have 90 minutes of joy, is the exact opposite for the people of Iran, unfortunately. Football is not just football. So tell me about why you attended the match, what kind of motivated you, your reasons, and what, some of the complicated feelings that I'm sure you were feeling, but what made you decide to go?
To be honest with you, I was not actually supposed to go to the game. I didn't have tickets to go. I was definitely planning on watching it, as I always have, even 4 years ago during Women Life Freedom Movement. And I was going to just watch it at home or at a friend's. And it was not until the day of, just last minute, that a friend called and said that someone couldn't make it last minute and they had an extra ticket. So, and I had this whole, it's funny, right? Because sometimes if someone calls you and says, I have tickets to World Cup, your first reaction, any normal situation, is like, yay, And for me, it
Not
was
us.
like my heart stopped for a second. I'm like, oh gosh, yes, I was planning to, of course, watch the game, but I'm like, do I want to be there for this? Do I actually want to go to this particular game and watch Iran live at the stadium? So there were a lot of mixed feelings, and I didn't even respond to him right away. And I said, let me get back to you, because I really didn't know if I should go, So, and I kept having these crazy thoughts and mixed feelings. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm meant to go. There's an opportunity. There is an extra ticket. And I was going to watch them anyway. And sure, I'll watch them live, and carry my mixed feelings over to the stadium. So, and it happened that I was free in my schedule. So I did go there. But it's really bittersweet, Negar.
Yeah.
It's really bittersweet because, to be honest with you, deep down, you really want to celebrate them. And I was never a person to ever mix politics with the Iran's national team. To me, I always looked at them as Iranians and they're the national team. But this year is very different, even more so than 4 years ago. And
Yeah.
some people were like, oh, don't bring politics into it. I'm not. I don't. It's actually FIFA and the Islamic Republic that brought.
Yes.
By speaking about banning a flag. If they hadn't originally said anything, Iranians would be free to bring whatever flag they want to bring, as everyone else, and celebrate their team and be proud. So they politicized it to begin with, not the people. We didn't politicize it. And but I deep down, I want to believe that these are Iranians who are playing for the people, but it's way beyond politics at this point. It's humanity, and we know what happened to Rashid Mazaheri, who did speak up. So at the same time, these players, some of them could, have the heart and be feeling for the people, but they don't want to speak up because they know what awaits them if they do speak up. Or some of them may be very much affiliated and agreeing with the regime. And it's something that we will never know. So all these thoughts and all these feelings are going through your mind while you're watching. And you're like, do I want to celebrate them? Are they with us? Are they not? And some people really celebrated. And some people, I cried. Like the first score, I just, I had tears in my eyes because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I should cheer or if I didn't know if I should be angry. So it's really something very unique, tragically unique for us Iranians to feel at the moment.
Yeah, it's a beautiful way to describe it. I remember in 1998, like waking up early and watching the games with my grandma and having so much pride in this team. But I feel, like you said, the Islamic Republic regime politicized this team and over time slowly killed Team Melli for so many of us by imprisoning those who would speak out, by, in some cases, killing athletes who speak out, of course, as we know most recently during the January massacre. So they really, I use the word kind of re-educated this team so that even if they did want to speak out, they don't. And some, like you said, maybe they really do deep down inside have this way of thinking, and we're never really gonna know. And this time around, I was watching to see if they sang the national anthem, because they didn't in 2022, but I do believe that they did this time. But that was something I was watching out for. Alireza, you are in California right now. Right in front of the stadium. You're right in the action of all this FIFA World Cup madness. You were also there covering the games. So, as from the perspective of an Iranian, of a reporter of Iranian origin, of course, what was it like for you being there? Describe the atmosphere and also your own personal feelings covering such a historic match.
Just has so many other things that Islamic Republic has taken away from us, confiscated. They have also confiscated this national team. I couldn't be this indifferent toward the team. Even 4 years ago, I had this argument with my colleagues, friends. They were like, no, this is a team of the regime. I was like, no, these players, we should separate them from the government, from the regime. I've always wanted to be a football player. I've always wanted to be one of these guys. I totally understand the situation. But after January, the massacre, the crackdown, violent repression, I really can't believe that these players didn't say anything. I had very little expectation from them. Just like any other person I spoke to in here, like over 90% majority, they wanted just a little bit of something. You don't have to be Ali Karimi. You don't have to put away everything you have. You don't have to lose everything. You just could have said, I don't know, put a black picture in your Instagram. Just say something. Condemn what has happened. But these players never did that. So mix of emotions, mix of feelings. When they conceded, I didn't really feel much. When they scored, I thought I wouldn't be very happy, but at the same time, I was recording myself and commentating on it. And they scored at the same time. I was like, go on, go on. Then I realized, okay, this is the team that they did nothing for the people. So yeah, but inside the stadium, it was amazing. It was amazing. So many lion and sun flags. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting to see the flags, lion and sun flag. It was like 90-10, like 90% lion and sun flag. There were people who they wanted to make sure that you should separate this team from the regime. They were saying that we have to take back this team because the regime has taken this team from us. So the majority in the stadium, they were very supportive. At the same time, I was kind of surprised. But when I talked to people, I was like, do you support the team? They were like, we support the players, we support the team. This is the national team of our country. But regardless of the players, regardless of the attitude, we cheer for Iran. But we have to make sure that we take this back away from the regime who has taken the team from us. So the atmosphere was amazing, very supportive, but 90% of them with lion and sun flag. After the halftime, so many of the flag was taken away by FIFA officials. I'm sure you have seen the videos. But also outside the stadium, there was a demonstration, and they had the pictures of those who were killed, around 40,000 people. Some of the people I was talking to outside the stadium, they was like, we won't pay to go inside the stadium to watch these players. But there was so many, 7,508 people watched this match inside the stadium, majority Iranian. There was people from other nationalities, obviously, who live in here, they buy tickets, they just want to watch football. But overall, very supportive of the players. But during the anthem of Islamic Republic, they all booed the anthem of the Islamic Republic anthem, and they just wanted to make sure that to be heard, to be the voice of Iranian people, and saying that this is our team, it doesn't belong to the regime. But that atmosphere was amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible, and I got chills when I saw this image of one Iranian American in the stadium, and he had a custom-made jersey that on the back it said January and the numbers 8-9, eight
There were so
nine
many
to
of them,
commemorate
so
the
many.
tens of thousands. Yes, to
There were a
I
lot of
mean, yeah, it's just something that we should never, 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 never forget. And Shiva, you touched on something really interesting when you talked about, they scored and you kind of had this feeling of joy. And then you went, wait, I don't know if I can feel that way. Describe that to somebody who may not understand what it's like to have those mixed feelings all at the same time. And you're in the atmosphere and you're seeing these players coming from Iran. And as Ali Reza said, the team Melli of Islamic Republic, essentially.
Even I do want to address even the ones that there were a lot of Iranians that said, that's not my team. I'm not going to cheer for them. That's not Iran's team. They don't belong. Um, even saying that, even those people, I know that's coming from a very, very wounded place. I don't think they really mean it. We're all hurting so much because of everything that's happened, because of the massacre that we had on January 8th and 9th. And you're constantly thinking about all these human beings, the 40,000 people that were massacred by the regime, and now they're trying to whitewash everything by bringing this team to the West and try to pretend like everything is okay. But at the same time, I think those people that say this is not my team, deep down they want to be able to be proud of their country and the national team. And on the other hand, it's also in a way, for me, what I was thinking, it's also rebellious in a way to say, you know what, these are Iranians, this is Iran's team. I am not gonna let you, the murderous Islamic Republic, to take that away from us, to take that joy away from Iranians, because you've taken so much from us already. So there's also that aspect or that approach to it, so that's why all these things are so mixed and bittersweet in a way. And that's exactly what happened when they scored their first goal. Uh, there was a whole people were a lot of people jumped out of their seats and they're holding the lion and sun flag. So at the same time, I looked around, I started crying. I don't know why, because I couldn't I have too much pain in my heart. I don't know,
Yeah.
this year has been such a tragic year for Iranians inside Iran, especially. And I can't possibly just say yay, because I'm constantly thinking of people who have lost their loved ones, and they wouldn't care about the team Melli scoring goal when they've lost their daughters and sons who were slaughtered by this regime. They don't care about bringing joy through soccer. So I'm constantly thinking about those things. So I teared up a little bit, like in my throat, and I was holding it back. But I looked around, and in a way, I did like that rebellious move of seeing people with the lion and sun flag celebrating this score. Because they're like, we are Iranians. This is the real flag of Iran, and we're still going to celebrate you as Iranians, and we're not going to let the regime take it away from us. So I understand and appreciate that approach as well.
Hmm.
I also understand the anger and the pain of saying this is not my team. So we had a mix of all of those in the stadium. And of course, very small number of people who were on the side of regime, and
Yeah.
they were holding the wrong flag. They were holding the Islamic Republic flag. They were the minority, but we had them as well.
Yeah, they exist too, but that's very interesting about people with the lion and sun flag cheering and just taking ownership. Like, no, you can't control how I feel about this team. Alireza, what about inside Iran? You're in touch with people inside Iran. How do people inside Iran feel about Team Melli, which for people who don't know, Melli is like national, right? Like your national team. Do they also see it the way that those of us in the diaspora feel with those mixed emotions, or is it different?
I get a lot of messages, so many messages saying that this is not our national team. Like I had a chat with Reza, one of our colleagues. He was saying that if the World Cup was in Iran and they had played in Iran, I'm sure no one would have gone to the stadium to support these players, because these
Wow.
players most of them, they went to the pro-government gatherings saying that we're going to go to America to hold the flag and show who we are. So you don't really have to say that. You know, we have an open wound. Imagine that mother who has lost her child, father, I don't know, someone who has lost a brother, sister. Why would you say something like that? Just be quiet. Just be quiet. You're a footballer. Okay, you're a footballer. Just play your football. Okay, I'm going to watch you and you may get a support, which happened in here. But you don't really have to say that. So this is an open wound, as I said. Some of these players make it worse just for their own benefits, because last World Cup, kind of something similar happened. And they had a meeting with the president at the time, Raisi, who was crashed down with a helicopter and died. And they were like, why would you do that? You know, just for your own benefit. They don't really care about the people, it seems. They just think about themselves. And but people's expectation is something else. They expected them to be themselves. They don't have to pretend to be somebody else. But at the same time, just be aware of what has happened. You know, you can't just erase it from memories of millions of people. You know, this was something so big. Everyone talked about it. And everybody knows what happened in Iran. So you can't just ignore it. But at the same time, if you don't want to be supportive of your own people, just be quiet. Don't say anything to make
Yeah.
it worse.
That's 100%. I couldn't agree more with you. And there was one player who was at the like a press briefing, and there was a American reporter who questioned him, you know, about the massacre and about people saying that they're not going to cheer for this team. And he said something along the lines of, "Well, that's our business. It's, you know, none of your business. We'll deal with it ourselves." And it's like, no, when it
Yeah.
comes to crimes against humanity, that's everybody's business, and it should be everybody's business.
But
So
I
just
do want
wanted,
to say
yeah,
one thing.
please do.
They were prepared. And you can tell they were
Yeah.
very much prepared, and they've
Exactly.
been warned what to say and what not to say, especially because we just had a similar experience like this with the girls' national soccer team. And look what
Yes.
happened to them. So I know for a fact that they were probably really threatened by the regime, that if they literally take one step the wrong direction, their family is in danger, their own lives are in danger. So they've been really rehearsing this whole thing, and you can tell just from the way they answer is very politically correct, and they're trying to stay away from saying anything wrong or anything that is against the regime. And it's obvious that the regime probably really prepared them and threatened them, most likely, to make sure that they watch what they do, they watch what they say, so they don't have the same situation as the girls' national soccer team being repeated. And you can see that. That's why you never know what's really going on in their minds, because they are putting on a face to the world, that you know, that this is our business, this is our country, and we just want to play soccer, we just want to bring joy. And they're just saying all the things, all the right things, basically.
The player you
Yeah,
just mentioned,
exactly.
Negar
And
Jan,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt. The player you just mentioned was Rami
please
Rezayan
go
in the
ahead.
press conference. Rami Rezayan in press conference. There was another player, Mehdi Taribi. Rami Rezayan, I should mention, he won the player of the match. He had a goal and assist. But at the end, he said this, which was very, I don't know, crazy to say something like that. Also, Mehdi Taremi in the press conference before the match, he was like, our conflict, this could happen in any country. It's normal. I mean, for sure, history is not his best subject. And I've never seen or read, I don't know, watched anything like that, what has happened in Iran. So as Shivajan mentioned, some things were dictated to them. Some of these players, the mentalities, they were brainwashed as a child growing up. They really think like that. But some of them are taking advantage of this opportunity for their own benefits. So I find that worse, even worse, to pretend and take advantage of this situation for your own benefit. Those with the mentality brainwashed, different. I think, okay, this is how they think. But when they take advantage of this, I cannot accept it personally.
No one should. And a lot of these players are very wealthy inside of Iran and very connected to this regime apparatus. Any final thoughts? Alireza, I'll start with you, and then Shiva. If you had to describe the experience of watching, and in your case, Alireza, of reporting on the World Cup, Iran playing on U.S. soil in the midst of everything that's happening, what is the one word you would use to describe it?
I'd say very lucky for them to be in US after what has happened, what they have said. But they had visa issues, but it was very generous of US to allow them to enter this country and play their World Cup matches, because if they had decided not to allow them to enter the country, they had to play with themselves as they did in the 3 matches, friendly matches. They had to play with themselves like 4 times. Nobody wanted to play with them. They had to play against like 3 times in Iran and once in all the other teams. Like they mentioned, they're going to play against Spain, Portugal. They, according to themselves, these countries canceled the matches, so they were very lucky to be here.
Yeah, definitely. And what about you yourself, Alireza? What's the one feeling, like word you would describe to how you felt covering the games and being there?
I mean, I love it. I love football. More matches, more joy. The weather is great. The stadium just behind me, 5.5 billion cost of construction for this. It's amazing. I'm not sure. Shivajan, you've been to this stadium. It's the best I've seen. So I really love it. I've been here for like 10 days now, I think. I'm going to be for another month. It's so many football. I really love it.
That's amazing, and we're very lucky to have you there covering this. And Shivajan, if you could describe just in one word what it felt like being there in the stadium, and at a time like this after the massacre and the war, now this MoU.
After I went inside and I'm like, oh wow, some people managed to bring the big flag. I wish I brought my bigger flag, but I wasn't sure. Although I know some people flag were confiscated actually, but they couldn't possibly go around and take everyone else's. There were like thousands of people. And what I really find appalling to me is the fact that unlike any other match that you would watch on TV, the cameras did not go on the viewers. They barely showed the viewers. You had to go
Terrible.
through social media and mainstream media even, and some of the other sources to see how many people had the lion and sun flag. And I don't know whatever agreement FIFA had between themselves and the Islamic Republic that they did not show. And that takes a lot to tell the cameraman, to tell the people, the system to not go on the viewers, on the audience, and not show the flag, because they really intentionally did that. And after I
That's
came back
disgusting.
and watched, yeah, it was obvious, So that's really disgusting and disturbing to me that they would do that. Not only you try to ban people from bringing their own rights of carrying whatever flag they want to bring with themselves, but you also intentionally don't show them on camera. And it was surreal. I think that's one word I can describe it as. It was definitely surreal to be there. It was exciting and painful at the same time, and I saw some really mixed reactions when I posted about it. Some people were like, we really understand your feelings. Some people were like, oh, why did you go? Or why do you mix politics? Or then stay home? It's like so many different reactions of all kinds. And yeah, a part of me was sort of proud to see Iran and Iranians playing. Another part of me was angry at the whole thing, at them for not saying anything while knowing that they would be risking their lives and their families' lives if they do say something. And so it was very surreal and bittersweet, I would say.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I know that this is a lot of different emotions and a lot is happening right now. So I really appreciate both of you and for your time. Thank you again for joining us on Eye for Iran.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, if you like this episode, you can hit the like button. You can also leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. And you can sign up for our weekly briefing newsletter at iranintl.com/newsletter. And you should also go check out our dedicated English website at iranintl.com/en.